Hey, Gatsby here, and today I have an unboxing. It's definitely not what I usually do, but I also have somebody here with me. His name is Matt, and he will be helping me, walking me through exactly what the hell this product is. So I guess, Matt, if you'd like to give yourself. Gatsby here again, and this time I made sure that all of the audio tracks and videos were set up properly. So today I'm joined again by a friend of mine, Matt, but let's go ahead and briefly talk about what I'm opening. A friend of the channel from my local game store, Sterling, shout out Sci Fi Factory, was given two dusty boxes that were probably worth more sealed, but we both figured it would be some pretty good content to open up on the channel. During this unpacking, though, I want to talk about the two Fantasy Flight card games, Destiny and Unlimited, and I decided that my friend Matt would be a great person to talk about this, given his experience with both of the games. I also wanted to give it a shot with the whole unboxing podcast vibe for a change to see if people like this kind of interview content, as it's something I'd consider to do more of in the future. So, Matt, tell the channel about yourself since I've known you longer than some of the viewers have been alive.
That is definitely true. This has been a long time. My name's Matt. I play a bunch of different tabletop games. Like anyone else, started with Warhammer 40K around, I don't know, 2011, 2012 probably, and then just kind of continued into the greater world of tabletop gaming through X-Wing, Star Wars Destiny, Star Wars Armada. Played a lot of different miniature games throughout the years, but always find myself coming back to Fantasy Flight anytime they try something new.
Yeah, I know early on you were pretty heavily invested in 40K, going to the Games Workshop pretty regularly with your other circle of friends, your friend group B. Of course, once X-Wing and Armada started dropping and getting into the scene, you were immediately at our doorstep going, hey guys, you should try out this new Star Wars game. But in terms of card games, did you really play many card games early on? I feel like most of the time it was pretty much tabletop games, very not too much cardboard.
Yeah, cardboard. Probably this game was the first cardboard game that I really took seriously and invested in. There had been, I dabbled in Yu-Gi-Oh, dabbled in Magic, had Pokemon cards as a kid like everyone else, but didn't know how to play the game. Star Wars Destiny was definitely the first time I really bought booster boxes, packs, showed up to locals, was part of a community for a cardboard game.
So for here, we're going to start with Awakening since you mentioned that that was set 1. Then we can do Spirit of Rebellion since that's the set 2. But let's talk about these massive, massive boxes for a second because they just feel so excessive. How many packs do these usually come with? I think it was like 36.
Yeah, I thought it was 24, but then I think 36.
I think we opened
is
it up
what
and
we.
it shows 36.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Do you remember like the going price on these boxes? Like what was the price per pack? What was the price per booster box?
The price per pack I can't even really remember, but I wanted to say 36 packs of the booster box was like $119.99, like any other cardboard game, and there wasn't you weren't really getting your money. This wasn't a game where you got like your money's worth out of a box necessarily. Like you weren't opening this, getting play sets of things and then selling off the extras to make money back. That wasn't really a thing for this game.
Yeah, I mean, even the packs were looking kind of hilarious with the big dice just kind of being shoved in there. And I think here, whenever I open it up, the dice kind of just falls out. It's a bit of a spoiler alert as to what you pulled out of the box or out of the booster right
Yeah.
away.
Yeah, you'll open it up and it has this cardboard sleeve, and you instantly know what you pulled, unless you got an error, which did happen. On occasion, you
Oh,
would
wow.
get a die that did not match the card that you pulled. It was pretty rare. I don't think I ever opened one myself. I think if I did, maybe once.
Would you ever get a dice where it was just like no stickers, just completely stickerless? Just here's your plastic cube.
I don't remember ever seeing a stickerless one, and they're not really stickers actually. Too, they're
Oh,
like
are
kind
they
of printed
printed?
on there.
Okay.
Yeah, it's printed on there. It's pretty interesting,
Mhm.
and that was part of the appeal too. Is like you had these really nice quality dice. They didn't feel cheap. They had these cool, they have the card art printed on them. It's pretty neat. I don't think I ever saw one that was blank. I did, however, have an error. I remember it's actually from the original starter set, which is not this product, but like a themed booster deck, I guess you would call it. I got a Kylo Ren die that was misprinted, and it did not have a blank on it. It had a extra 1 damage side on it. So it was like,
Oh,
it is, and I think I played with it a little bit before I realized, like, holy crap, this thing isn't blank. Oh yeah, here you go. I'm showing you their intent
oh my
when they
God,
designed
yeah.
when they designed this product, sitting in corporate chairs, not in China, not in the Chinese factory manufacturing the stuff.
Yeah, honestly,
Someone
the
designed it and
pack
thought it
design
was
is
really cool.
it's this is so cool. This is genuinely
Yeah.
so genius that they did this like this, but I think you explained here that like it's just completely unreasonable. Like the amount of money they would have had to spend to actually have the dice set in like that would have
Yeah.
been astronomical.
Right. Yeah, yeah. I'm sure like they got a labor quote for for doing it, or maybe it was going to be machined that way, but they just never ended. The factory was unable to do it. Maybe the factory made promises that they were unable to fulfill. I don't know. Oh, and then
Mhm.
also I just noticed it here, and I don't think we talked about it the first time. There's like also like a little lip on the cardboard as well, like a corner, so you can peel back the corner without damaging the cards. Um,
Oh yeah,
it,
on the
it's
packs.
not.
I think I figured
No,
that
no,
out
no. On
halfway
the
through. Oh.
no. On the cardboard, there's like a slight perforation. It doesn't. You don't destroy it. It's like already pre-bent, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It's
Oh,
kind of
okay, okay.
strange. But yeah, no, they're not a single pack in the entire length of this game, which was about 4 years, something like that. Not a
Mhm.
single pack ever had the die inside the cardboard insert. That not a single one.
Did they ever have like showroom things where they came out and they just went, "Hey guys, this is what." Did they ever have anything like showcase wise where like they're showing off to like investors and they go, "Hey, this is where the dice would be placed," something like a just like a display or something. That's the only way I
Not
could ever imagine that being actually showcased and shown, "Hey guys, this is what the dice is supposed to be set in on."
I'm sure there was some kind of
Like a
corporate like
corporate demo thing.
yeah, the
Yeah.
corporate like PowerPoint or something that showed it that way. I don't remember ever seeing something on like the floor of like a convention or something where they displayed it that way.
Okay.
There was not like there was like if I remember right, there was like one bigger convention that this game was shown off at, maybe two. Maybe it was like a Adepticon it was shown off at, and then possibly like there was maybe a Star Wars celebration that happened like right before this came out. And this game, it kind of came out of nowhere. Like there wasn't a big lead up like there was for Unlimited for this game. Not that I remember anyway.
I guess that's a pretty good question, really. With Fantasy Flight, did they just have the IP already through X-wing and Armada, and that just said, "Hey," they just sat down? I mean, obviously this is all speculation, but do you think that's probably the reason why they ended up going into Star Wars Destiny into Unlimited? They just already had the contracts drafted out.
Yeah, because it wasn't Destiny into Unlimited. It was Star Wars LCG into Star Wars Destiny into Star Wars Unlimited.
Oh, so they had
Um,
another card game before Destiny as
yeah,
well.
yeah. The Star Wars LCG, which that's the living card game format, where you don't buy booster packs, just like a pack of cards comes, like an expansion comes out for the game, and it has a playset of all the new cards just straight in it. It's pretty unique format, and Fantasy Flight had a lot of games that followed that. I think I think the living card games now are these more kind of cooperative, more RPG-esque experiences than competitive card games. But there was a time where Fantasy Flight had, let's see, they had Netrunner,
It had L5R,
uh,
Legend of the Five
Elf,
Rings. Yeah.
Legend of the Five Rings, Game of Thrones. I think that's
Yeah,
it.
I do remember that brief period of time where we hopped on Tabletop Sim and we all tried to figure out
Yeah,
L5R. That was quite something.
I was kind of excited for L5R because it looked interesting
Oh, I love the
and unique. I
design.
kind of like
The
the art.
aesthetic is
Yeah,
so
yeah,
good.
yeah. The aesthetic is really, really fun. Usually not my kind of aesthetic, but something about L5R did it for me. I remember you and I like sitting there. The game was pretty complex. I remember us sitting there for a while
Extremely, yeah.
trying to get a hand of it.
So, what brought you into Fantasy Flight games, like interested in Fantasy Flight? Because for you specifically, you're always aware of like the developers of projects and the people who are actually put onto the stuff. Things like Richard Garfield when Artifact was a thing for maybe a week. And then things like Ben Brode with Marble Snap, where we basically suffered that for 2 or 3 years. Was there anything that kind of got you into Fantasy Flight Games and their projects, or was it just kind of, hey, I like Star Wars, they're putting Star Wars stuff out, these are my guys?
No, so probably my first experience with Fantasy Flight Games was probably a board game, and it was probably a war. They also had the Warhammer IP for board games, and there was a Warhammer 40K LCG for a while too.
Oh wow,
that was very short lived. They lost the IP pretty quick on that one, or the IP ran out and then the game died pretty quickly. They had the IP for board games for a while, and yeah, that was probably my first experience. Was probably either like Warhammer 40K Relic or Warhammer Chaos in the Badlands, I think is what the board game is called, which is like the fantasy setting. And then from there, like I just liked their game design. And I think the big thing that made me a huge fan of Fantasy Flight Games was when X-Wing first came out, because that was at the time it seemed, and it still is, I think, looking back on it, it was kind of revolutionary in the tabletop war game scene to have this system with these movement tools and these hidden dials and this interesting back and forth play that relied on initiative for activations. And it was extremely fun. X-Wing first edition, the first 5 years was an extremely magical experience for a tabletop war gamer.
So let's actually talk about Star Wars Destiny now, since it's kind of being played in the background. Could you explain a little bit about the dice and what makes certain dice better than others? Obviously, there's a card with a dice in each of these packs. I think that most of those are going to be all of your rare cards and your legendary cards. But what makes those dice better than others? Is there like any kind of die where you're just like, this is obviously worth being a legendary despite it being a rare? Or is it pretty much like, when it's a legendary dice, when that dice has that value?
Yeah, I mean, your die always corresponds to either your rare or your legendary. So in every single pack, you're at least guaranteed a rare. And those rares are either going to be something that's like an equipment for your character, or they're either going to be your characters, which is kind of Commander-esque, or even just kind of similar to Unlimited, where your characters start on the board. They're not part of your deck or they're part of your deck construction, but they are not in your deck. But instead of Unlimited, where we're just picking one and a base, in Destiny, all the character cards have a point value associated with them, and it's in like the bottom left corner. You'll build a team up to 30 points, and then and they will have dice associated with them that are just on the character cards on the battlefield, I guess you could say, at the start of the game. And then the other rare cards will be stuff like equipment for said characters, vehicles that are like a separate activation, or some of them are just like weird support things, like a turret or something like that, or they'll be a little bit more abstract, like I think there's one called Hangar Bay or Launch Bay or something, and that card has a die associated with it. But in terms of like power level, it kind of varied. There were just some characters that were better than others, and it didn't really have to do anything with like legendary or rare. I mean, a lot of the legendary characters did end up being good. Like, for instance, Jabba the Hutt here, he's a legendary character, and he ended up being okay. He wasn't the greatest, but he did see some experimentation. But then you have like your Lukes, your Vaders; those were legendary characters as well.
Okay, so very similar to how, like in Star Wars Unlimited with Set 1, like that Luke card, that Vader, the Luke unit, the Vader unit, those two cards were just, everybody wanted those.
Yeah, and specifically with Destiny, it was all about Vader. Vader was, Luke was okay, but Vader was insane.
I think at this point you kind of mentioned too how the way the split is made, where you have your heroics and you have your villainy. Was villainy just insanely stacked, or was hero able to keep up with them? Because I felt, at least for me early on when I was playing Unlimited, I really felt like villainy was just so head and shoulders above and beyond the play curve for heroic. At this point now, in hindsight, we can kind of say, Sabine, he was pretty good. At this point, I think, is Sabine a he or a she? I don't actually know.
Yeah,
that.
you always see the card with the helmet on, so you don't. And you're not
I'm not a Star Wars. Yeah. I know. I'm just a Star Wars enjoyer, not an aficionado.
You Yeah,
I
you
don't
don't have a
have the
Disney
Disney
Plus
Plus
subscription.
subscription. That's true. So with
Yeah,
Sabine, I don't know. I'll probably leave this in, but with Sabine, she was pretty good. Like we obviously, in hindsight, we 100% know that Sabine was pretty good. Han Solo, obviously, premier, tier 1.5, tier 1 deck at this point. I think everyone's pretty accepting of that. Maybe it was just Boba pushing them over the top, but early on, it just felt like, man, I hated seeing villainy, and it might have just been because of Boba Fett, but and we could talk about that. We'll definitely be talking about that later. But was there anything like that in Destiny where you were just like, man, the villainy tools are just so much more effective
yeah. I
in this
think
game?
from what I can remember, and I think it's kind of known at this point that villainy throughout the entire run of Destiny was always kind of a little bit stronger.
Oh, I love this card.
But
He doesn't like
oh
you.
yeah, he doesn't like you. Yeah, it's a good card too, if I remember. But yeah, I think villainy throughout the run of Destiny did end up being kind of on the stronger side, and I think hero decks, usually hero players would usually kind of complain that they felt like they weren't getting the same kind of tools that the villainy decks got. And so when it comes to unlimited and you feeling like villain was just far and above, I think a lot of that was Boba, and obviously that's been addressed and fixed.
Yeah.
Overwhelming Barrage also felt like a card that was a bit above any kind of counterpart that Hero had. I mean, there were cards like there was some Leia support, like the Rebel kind of stuff, like their Rebel Assault or something like that,
Oh, yeah.
that was trying to be kind of the counterpart, the opposite side of the OB coin, but OB just ended up being it still is like an extremely
Big
powerful card.
swings. When it came to Destiny, I know you played quite a bit. Organized play, TO work. Was there anything that you would say is like your personal highest accolade within the game, like high levels of play, events you attended? Did you get to meet like any of the devs, have them sign stuff, anything like that?
Yeah, I definitely met a few of them. Like, I don't think I never got a card signed or anything, but I definitely
Mm.
met them, shook their hand, said, hey, I really appreciate the game. The game's great. Like, it brings me, this is my favorite thing. This is what I like to do in my free time, and I appreciate y'all creating all this. Probably the highest level thing I ever did was I judged at I think they called them planetary qualifiers back then. I think they were
Same
PQs, not
same things
galactic.
how they have nowadays, or or is it
Yeah,
actually
right.
different where it's
No, it was kind of this. No, actually, it would have been a little different. This was one at a convention. This was actually at South by Southwest, or no, not South by Southwest. This was at PAX South when that used to
oh
be a
yeah,
thing.
rest in
Yeah,
peace.
rest in peace, PAX South. And I judged at one of those events, and there was like a main event, and there were side events, and you would earn points or earn tickets that you could go then spend on a prize wall. And I judged the main event for one of those PQs, and it went all right. There's logistical stuff as always, but it was a good time, and I enjoyed doing that. I went and played at Worlds. Now, Worlds was not like an invitational thing, just kind of anyone could go if you bought a ticket. And this game wasn't as popular as Unlimited, so like I don't remember tickets selling out in like minutes or anything. Maybe in a couple of days they might have sold out of tickets. But I went to Worlds, played like a pet deck because it's what I liked playing at the time. I really don't even remember what it was. If I remember right, this was like an era where there was like a Django Kylo Ren deck. If I remember correctly, it was like blue yellow villain, and it was like tier 2 at most, maybe, and probably didn't do very well, but had a ton of fun. Going to the FFG headquarters in Minnesota is always really cool. And it was cool back then too, because when they did these Worlds events, it was for all of their Star Wars games. So you'd be there, and they were running Destiny and X-Wing and Armada. All these games were being played at in these big tournaments at their big headquarters building, and it was just a big Star Wars nerd celebration, and it was always a good time.
So it's Star Wars Destiny. I guess explain to me how you know that something like Kylo and Django was a tier 2 deck. Like, are there specific win cons outside of just taking out your opponent's character cards? Is there like mill or whatever the in-universe equivalent to like a Star Wars Exodia is?
Later in the game's lifespan, there would be alternate win conditions. Like there were cards called plots introduced. I don't remember what set those came in, but essentially it was a way to spend points on your characters that wasn't spending points on your characters. And you had stuff like build the Death Star or blow up the Death Star as like alternate win conditions if you took those plots. From what I understand, I had kind of already left the game at that point, but from what I remember, they were never amazing, but it was fun that they existed, and that would have been your kind of Exodia win con. Basic win condition was just defeat your opponent's character. And it's interesting too, because with Unlimited, they're experimenting with these different, health totals on your bases, but it was always variable in this game because your character combinations dictated your health total. And then also, there was an interesting level of depth to you sit down across from your opponent and they sit there with Jabba and Dooku, for example. And you have to make a decision of which is the higher priority target. Which one of these characters do I want to defeat first? Because just because you defeat one of them doesn't mean the game's over. You have to defeat all your opponent's characters. So there was that was an interesting choice that you had to make at the beginning of the game. And, you would probably dictate that off of your opening hand too. Do I have a big upgrade to put on one of my characters so that way I can, come out swinging and put a decent chunk into Jabba or put a decent chunk into Jango Fett and have them, eliminated by top of turn 3 or something. And at different points in the meta, there were, you had different stat checks of are you able to defeat the big, there were multiple versions of Vader, and are you able to defeat the big Darth Vader card by turn 3? Because if and that was just kind of a stat check of can your deck deal with big Vader by turn 3, and if not, your deck's just not going to compete well in the meta. So there were Unlimited is great. Destiny had this extra level of depth that I do miss with the way character combinations worked. Now you just kind of have your more Commander-esque character in Unlimited. Destiny had this unique approach with a points system, more a la a miniature game or a board game than a typical TCG.
Yeah, because I feel like in Star Wars Unlimited, your big choice is always just going to be, are you pushing more heavily into the ground or are you pushing more heavily into space? But at the end of the day, you're still dumping all of your points into your enemy base. With Destiny, obviously, like you said, you can have multiple character cards. I think 2, sometimes even 4. It was 4 basically the max? Or
4 was probably basically the max. There were gimmicky cards created, like the B1 battle droids that you could spam, and I think you could run 5 of them. I don't remember off the top of my head. I think it was
the numbers game that worth playing? Was it just giving you that many more actions? No. Okay.
No, and in fact, Unlimited is kind of a game where, well, it depends on the meta, I guess. I feel like in Unlimited, though, you kind of want more actions sometimes because you want to bait certain things out. Destiny was usually a game about speed. So having more characters like that usually was not as good as just having the 2 characters. I would say 80% of the top performing decks throughout the game's history were always 2 characters. Mm-hmm. There were times where there is a specific, you asked about mill. There was a time where there was a mill meta where the tier 1 or one of the tier 1 decks was a mill deck. And I want to say it was only 3 characters. And the advantage of having 3 characters too was usually those 3 character decks were all 3 colors, red, blue, and yellow. So you had access to all the best cards from red, blue, and yellow. That was a huge advantage to have access to the best cards from each color. And
was there ever anything an out of aspect
no,
play?
That did not exist in Destiny. If you did not have a yellow character, you could not play a yellow card.
So at this point, I'm about halfway through this box. And you get about 36 packs, I think is what it says on the booster box. Is it like Unlimited with commons, uncommons, rares, and legendaries? Do you get anything like hyperspaces or a certain number of guaranteed legendaries per box plus a wild card? Is there anything like that? Or is it pretty much exactly what you're going to get?
No, with this product, you knew exactly what you were going to get. With your 36 packs, you were guaranteed 6 legendaries in a box. And I want to say there were about 18 legendaries per set, somewhere in that range. There's no foil, there's no alt arts, there's no special borders, there's nothing. There's just the singular copy of the card. There would be promos later that you would get at organized play events. or even open play nights at your friendly local game store. But there were, in the packs themselves, you were getting the same card no matter what. And as far as value goes, like maybe some in the early days, it was crazy. Like I can remember Luke's Invaders selling online on eBay or something for like $100. But once the market settled and product was readily available, maybe Luke Invader stuck at like 30, $40. But maybe if you were lucky, there were some rares that were $1 or $2. And then your legendaries are where the money was at, and every set had those legendaries that were about $20. I'd say that was like the peak.
Obviously, Destiny didn't stick around forever, so let's talk about that. It was around for like 4 years, and then I remember you just kind of messaging me and saying, "Hey, the game's dead now. The devs are done supporting it." Was there any specific reason as to why it died? Was there like a final nail in the coffin, or was it just kind of like Fantasy Flight wanted to move on to new projects?
I think the not nail in the coffin, but maybe more of a hey, this is convenient, let's put the nail in the coffin, was the pandemic. I think they had kind of already toyed with the idea of being done with it, though. I can't imagine sales were super great. Some of the excuses that kind of got floated around was that the manufacturing of the dice was very expensive. Also, just kind of, we talked about the size of the box. Like, that box is huge. Now, the first two sets did have slightly bigger boxes. I do remember the boxes becoming a slightly different size later down the road, a little bit smaller. But it's still, these boxes are massive, and you can only fit so much on a pallet. So you're looking at shipping costs being way more expensive than it would be for a typical TCG, where your booster boxes are as small as they can possibly be. You have a lot of wasted space because of these dice.
Yeah, I genuinely, I can't stress that enough. Even as somebody who had it in my room, I was just thinking to myself, Jesus Christ, like, to get this stuff out of here. This is just taking
it takes
up
up a lot of space. So I don't think there was like a huge nail in the coffin. I think it was also at a time where FFG was getting ready to restructure itself. I don't remember when the Asmodee or not merger, but when Asmodee became the parent company. I don't remember when that happened, but this is 2019 to like 2021 was a time where FFG kind of trimming a lot of the fat, getting rid of a lot of products from different departments. Like, they got rid of this, they got rid of their RPG department, they toned down their miniatures around that time as well. So yeah, I don't think there was a final nail in the coffin. I think it was just kind of a little too expensive for what they were trying to do moving forward.
Is that a concern for you when you're looking at Unlimited? Do you think they're just more likely to keep Unlimited because they restructured and you don't really have to be concerned too much or as much when looking at a different product that, isn't tied to a bunch of dice in a huge box?
Yeah, when Unlimited was first announced, of course, there were the old guard from Destiny just being like, absolutely not, I'm not getting burned again, because people were pretty upset. Like, the game was beloved, but the people who were still playing the game at the point that it died, like, were diehard fans. I was already out by then, but the people who were playing were diehard fans that really, really enjoyed it, that were pretty upset to see it go. So when Unlimited was announced, the overall community reaction was absolutely not. We're not giving FFG a second chance. I've been burned before, or even a third chance at this point with the people who were coming from the Star Wars TCG. I kind of came at it from the perspective of, but wait a second, this company has changed a lot since Destiny. And also, they are giving us way more information and talking to us way more about this game than they ever did with Destiny. Probably there was more information about Unlimited and more communication about Unlimited before it came out than there probably ever was for the entire run of Destiny. I'll put it that way. So I knew it felt different. I knew that the company was different, management was different, that this was something that they were going to take way more seriously and have a better plan for. There's still some things that I wish were a little bit better at the beginning of Unlimited, but the launch of Unlimited was leaps and bounds better than the launch of Destiny.
You did mention that you were kind of already out by the time you saw that announcement. Was there any product that was still pending release, or were you basically just completely out at that point already, and then you just coincidentally saw that announcement and you were like, okay, time to pack it up?
I had already been out, but when the announcement was made, I know there was a pending release product and they released it as like print and play because they had it already. Like, why not just give it to the fans?
Oh, wow.
And it was interesting because introduced a fourth color. They introduced green, which was going to represent all of like the creatures in Star Wars. So I don't remember looking at it at all myself, but I remember people being like, man, this would have been really cool to see actually printed.
At the bare minimum, I know the Renewed Hope Discord still keeps the game alive with regularly scheduled tournaments, and they helped me quite a bit with the last Star Wars Unlimited video I worked on, where I talked about the big announcements that were coming into Unlimited, comparing it to Destiny, which I'd like to brag I was right on the money, but again, we'll get to that a little bit later. Right here, I know we started talking about the hyperspace jump stuff, though, and how it kind of paired up with the Millennium Falcon. Was this something that was kind of seen in set 1 already early on, or was that something that a little bit further down the line, like once we got into set 2, that was when it really started to find its place? Because I think the combination was like Millennium Falcon plus hyperspace jump plus throne room, and then
it ends up being like not necessarily. It can be an infinite loop because you have access to the first action of the game because you're claiming the battlefield, which is the equivalent of taking the initiative in Unlimited. Now, but in Destiny, you would get the added acclaim effect that was associated with the battlefield. So this combination would just revolve around you at least playing the Millennium Falcon and then also playing hyperspace jump. Or maybe you don't even have to play it. Maybe the Falcon lets you play it from your hand or discard pile. I can't remember. But essentially, the outcome of that combination was that was found pretty early. You were asking me if it was like set 2 that we found that. No, it was like pretty early in set 1. Like, oh hey, right out the gate. It's just like, oh hey, you could just stall out the game if you really wanted to. And so that had to be addressed. And I don't think they got to it very quickly, though. It definitely got addressed before Set 2 came out, but then that's a whole nother story. Set 2 took like 6 months or something to come out. It got delayed multiple times. This was at a point where FFG just had so many SKUs that they had a really bad system for picking and choosing what was getting manufactured at any given time, apparently. So the TLDR of the hyperloop combo is that it led to the idea of the out of play zone. So it'd be the equivalent of like a card being exiled in Magic. It's out of the game. You cannot interact with it anymore at that point. So the card had to be errataed as well. The rules had to be changed, and then also the card had to be errataed. That basically said after you play hyperspace jump for any reason and with any effect, it is put in the out of play zone and not put into your discard pile.
Yeah, and we can see right here, Millennium Falcon, play a yellow event from your discard pile.
Right, so you didn't even have to play it normally first.
Yeah,
so
have the Falcon on board, have the throne room, and then you're there.
And then the hyperspace jump also, if for whatever reason your battlefield, the throne room, wasn't chosen at the beginning of the game, it will also let you change the battlefield if you wanted to. So you would be able to move it over to the one you want, which is the throne room. And you could just time out the game because you could take 2 actions, which one action would be activate the Falcon, roll its dice into the pool, and then your opponent would get 1 action. So they'd roll their Vader with 3 lightsabers in and roll the nuts. And then you would just say nope and claim the battlefield and reset the board.
So going into the second box, I had to ask, most card games have other formats like Draft and Commander. Was that something that was ever built into Destiny where you're like able to draft these packs, or was it pretty much only constructed formats?
So in the era that we're looking at right now, which is these first 2 sets, there was no draft format. It would have been buying like even 6 or 8 packs probably would not have netted you the proper cards to actually construct a deck. There were fan attempts to make some kind of draft format, and in fact, I think cube drafting was kind of popular in certain parts of the community. My local meta never really experimented with it too much. And that just comes down to the nature of these packs of you can't guarantee that in those 6 to 8 packs you're going to actually pull characters that one, you might not even pull characters, and 2, you might not pull characters that work together. Eventually, I think it was with the release of set 3, it might not have even been until set 4 came around. No, I think it was 3 that we had a draft set released, and this was another huge headache of getting people into the game, because draft is an excellent way to get new people into the game, because all they have to do is go buy 3 packs and sit down, and you can teach them the game as you go. With this game, there was the extra barrier of okay, you want to learn this game, okay, sorry, you got to buy this $15-$20 draft set, and then also buy some packs to sit down and play.
Yeah.
And that was just a really feels bad, and it was hard to get people into the game. It was a neat idea. It was kind of cool because then there were multiple draft sets that were introduced, and you could kind of show up with the one that you liked and that you liked playing with, and then add cards. Sometimes it was like, oh, okay, we're going to draft, but you can only use this draft set, or sometimes it was bring whichever one you want. So that was kind of neat. A more popular like fan draft was what we just called like a build-a-box tournament. So everyone would show up, and we would do this with, like, when a new set released, we would buy a whole box. Everyone would buy a whole box, and you'd sit there and open your box and then build a deck out of whatever you got in there. And that was always, I think, even when the official draft format came out, I think we all enjoyed the build-a-box idea way more than the actual official draft format.
Yeah, it's like Keyforge, except you just have to spend $120 on your
Yeah,
box.
right.
So now that we're moving away from set 1 and moving into set 2, were there any cards with higher values coming into this? I know in set 1 you said mostly all you're going to be looking for are your Luke's Invaders, but in set 2, did we kind of see anything like a shift towards that? Were they pretty much just intent on making it to where promos were the money cards, or
No,
anything like that?
I don't think their intent was ever that the value would only be in the promos. That's just kind of, and it wasn't all promos. It was mostly like the spot gloss promos that were given away at the bigger events where you had the prize walls. Some of the like regionals and stuff did have like stamped spot glosses as well for like top 16, top 8 champion. But as far as value in set 2, I don't remember what the big chase cards. I think there was a legendary Poe Dameron, and there's probably some other cards, but nothing stands out at me like, oh my god, those were the huge big, like, you pulled that, like, hey, you just made $50. Like, that kind of stuff didn't really exist in Destiny going forward after like the hype had died down and the product was rarely available. It was still kind of like, oh, okay, you got the $20 legendary and you got your 2, and you pulled a third one, so you could sell that to someone in your local meta for like $10-$15 if you wanted to, if you didn't want to go through the hassle of eBay or whatever.
When it came to set 2, was there anything like design wise people were looking forward to? New strategies, new game mechanics? I know obviously in the most recent spoilers that we've been seeing for Jump to Lightspeed, we're seeing piloting being added as a keyword. Were keywords regularly added to Destiny, or was that something that wasn't really for Destiny?
Yeah, Destiny had new mechanics introduced all the time, but they would never really expand on them. I think that's as if you ask like kind of the old guard people who played Destiny from the beginning, they got a little bit better as time went on. But in these first like 4, 5-ish sets, you see new ideas introduced and not really expanded on in the next set. Keywords didn't really exist, and neither really did traits. You'll see on most of these cards, you'll just see like character,
just your hero,
like that's
or your villain.
Yeah, like you see this card that's on screen now. It's a TIE pilot, and he's like just a character, and he's a villain card. But like later, you would see cards. They started to introduce traits. So like later, that if that card was designed later, he would be like, or even in Unlimited, right? He would be character, pilot, Imperial, or something like that. Instead of cards referencing traits like that, like you see with Magic and now with Unlimited, what you more had of in Destiny was this idea of spotting a card. So a card would say part of the condition to play a card, it would say something like spot a yellow character, which meant if you control a yellow character, you can do this, is essentially what it meant. And it would more of the time it would reference the color than like Imperial like traits. That was something that was introduced later down the road.
So now that we're into the second box, let's talk a little bit more about Star Wars Unlimited. As somebody who's played both of the games, what were some of the things you were hopeful to see change from Destiny going into Unlimited?
Coming into it, I think the biggest thing was not even gameplay. It was communication from FFG, and that's been proven to be leaps and bounds better than anything we ever got with Destiny. I know a lot of people are still not entirely happy with the state of like organized play. I agree there could be some few tweaks and changes here and there, but the communication from FFG about just what's going on in the game, what products are releasing, when they're coming out, when events are being run is way better than Destiny ever was.
Yeah, I know definitely for the judge program, our RTO at our LGS, he definitely gets upset, especially things like the double loss. How if you go into time, it is just a double loss. Admittedly, because we usually are playing Yu Gi Oh!, I don't think I've ever seen somebody go, hey, we used the Konami website to find your store that's hosting a game night tonight. The second we hooked up to the Fantasy Flight system, we had people just immediately coming to our door, like 5, 6 people, just, hey, you guys are running a Star Wars night tonight. And to me, that is incredible, genuinely incredible.
Yeah, and I think stuff like that is really cool. I'm glad it exists. Again, that's something that never really existed with Destiny. So in that regard, I'm glad those tools are there. That's not necessarily how I find places to play, but then again, I'm a huge fucking nerd and know every shop pretty much in Houston,
It's true.
and what's going on at all of them when it comes to the games that I'm interested in. So
So you did mention the dialogue that happens between Fantasy Flight and its community. So let's talk about that dialogue. Let's talk about the two most recent announcements made. Starting with, of course, the Boba Fett ban. So as the aforementioned person with a Disney Plus subscriber, yes, that was this guy. Tell me what your response was to the Boba Fett ban.
yeah, I think it was needed. It was a character, and they were honest about it. Like it was a character that was designed really early on, and where they maybe didn't quite understand like power tuning of how these characters should function. And I think we're starting to see that there's less and less characters being announced that have these like reactive abilities. And we if Boba was designed today, I think it would be one. I think his cost would go up one, and his ability would be an action that says like if you did this, then you can ready your resource. It wouldn't be like as you do this, like it is now, where it's like, oh, you as you do this, go ahead and untap a resource. And I think it was just early on, and they didn't quite understand how powerful that was. And designs had already been set in stone, and probably by the time that they got to the game releasing, they probably already knew it was a problem. But you're not just gonna you're not gonna launch a product and be like, oh, by the way, this card's banned because later in our own internal testing we realized that he's overtuned. They're gonna let the community play with him for a little while, and maybe they're wrong. Maybe he's not as powerful, but I think he turned out to be just as powerful as they probably expected he was, and so he needed to go.
Yeah, I know, kind of reading their announcement, they did mention how they didn't think it was that bad. They did have their suspicions of it, but it seemed like one of those cards that was on the line, but I think he pretty much nailed it. The action economy of being able to ready those resources immediately after hitting something with a waylay, that definitely made the card feel a lot better than really any other leader in set 1 and really in the first 3 sets in general. So, what types of decks did you prefer playing in Unlimited? I know earlier you had mentioned to me off video that you liked playing mill strategies in Destiny. Did that carry over to Star Wars Unlimited, or do you have like a different type of like aspect combination that you really like to play into for Unlimited?
Most of what I did play in Unlimited was Red Blue Hero. I don't know why I enjoyed that combination so much, but I just sort of did.
Was that like real
I wish,
aggressive or?
yeah, a little bit more aggressive, but having like really fun tools to play with. Like I just think Force
Whoa,
Throw is
whoa, whoa,
the coolest card in the
whoa, whoa!
game.
You can't say
Ooh,
that.
ooh,
Disney,
whoa,
Disney, whoa,
Disney! What were you
Disney.
thinking?
Is this
This
your
is
ship,
this
Disney?
this is a Disney product. It was a
Fire,
different
fire
era.
spray, fire spray.
Uh,
Okay, fire
yeah,
spray. Jesus Christ, get it
yeah, I don't know
together,
what they were
Disney.
thinking back then, dude. Let's see, this would have been like 2017, 2016, 2017. It was a different time, all
It
right.
was a different time. It was a different time. Very true. Very true.
But yeah, I wish Mill was kind of in a stronger, better place in Unlimited, but with the timed rounds and best of 3, I think Mill isn't quite there, and I understand that people don't like Mill. I really do. So I understand that they try to be really, really conservative with the amount of mill cards that they print because it's upsetting to a vast majority of players. But if mill ever did become like tier one in unlimited and it was consistent and good and you could do it in a best of three, I'd be all over it.
I think that's probably the thing I like the most about Star Wars Unlimited is the fact that it does definitely at times feel very rock paper scissorsy, where you are looking at a dedicated mill strategy and you're going, okay, I'm losing my games to the aggressive Sabine decks. I'm losing my games to decks that are just looking to run me down as fast as possible. Whereas they do pretty well against those mid-rangey decks. They just auto-fold to Sabine Red or something in those lines where you're just playing a more aggressive direction. Was there anything like that in Destiny when it came to like in tournament play where you just have decks that just automatically fold out to?
Funny enough, like, yeah, I would say Unlimited has this very healthy triangle strategy. The triangle strategy in Destiny was kind of blurry. You had mill, you had control, but I really wouldn't say you had aggro and mid range were just kind of the same sort of feel, at least to me. Just because aggro, you could never be consistent because you're rolling dice. So like your mid-rangey deck could go aggro because you roll the Yahtzee, but that trying to describe decks using that traditional card game triangle format didn't always make sense in Destiny. You couldn't just make a comparison the same way. There were definitely matchups that were tougher than others because like you had a big character health pool to chew through or something. But at the same time, like you could just roll really hot like a miniatures game and just kind of take over the game on the first turn or the second turn. The idea of like the alpha strike was real in this card game.
So let's talk about the other announcement that was made semi recently, where they had mentioned rotation being announced. What was your opinion, since you've kind of already dealt with this style of rotation in Star Wars Destiny, now that they're going to be implementing it into Star Wars Unlimited? Was there any kind of like response that you saw, overwhelming response that you saw when this was announced?
I think the response from the community was kind of mixed, which was strange to me. I think people from the Destiny old guard expected it. We were just like, yeah, that's what they're going to do. That's their style of doing like a kind of a standard format of only the 6 most recent sets at the most are playable at any given time, and I think that's perfectly fine. I think that's healthy. You will still have like I'm not sure what they're calling it, but like a wild format where every single card ever printed is legal, like in Hearthstone it's called wild. I was happy with the announcement. I think the people who are overwhelmingly upset are people that are maybe more concerned with like the value of their cards.
I think you might have had it right the first time around, more so than the second time. I do think that the people who had played Destiny, who are familiar with Fantasy Flight, they were probably taking it a little bit more, whereas people who play more traditional card games, I know a lot of the Yu-Gi-Oh community, since for the most part we do have a very wide format of just, and here's 10,000 cards, go sort through them and figure it out. For a lot of us, I was seeing quite a few people who were, excited about this, but I saw an equal number of people who were kind of upset about it. So I know time will tell on that front, but at least with Destiny, I do know that there was a secondary thing where it was like a 2-player set that was included in the game, but it wasn't included in rotation. Could you explain that at all, or was that, does Star Wars Unlimited have anything equivalent to that?
So no, I think the 2-player game was included in, or was it not included in rotation? No, I think it was included in rotation, but the game didn't live. I don't think the game lived long enough for it to rotate out, I think is what happened. We can talk about that really quick because funny enough, they just announced a similar style product with this Return to Hoth or Battle of Hoth starter set that they announced. The 2-player game for Star Wars Destiny was a product that was not only at your friendly local game store, but they had gotten a contract to get it into like Target and Walmart as well. I think back then it was only Target actually, but what was funny about that set is that it was not play tested. So
Oh.
it was play tested internally, but not by the volunteer play testing groups. They had no idea that these cards were being added into the game, and they were kind of upset apparently when all of a sudden that product dropped, and they had no idea of its existence and felt like they had made decisions that didn't account for cards that were in that box. And from what I understand, it was like a secrecy thing with Disney, because this was like the starter set was themed to The Last Jedi, and I think it was before the movie had actually dropped. And so it was like a secret thing that with Disney NDAs and stuff, and so none of the external play groups were in the know about it. So it was kind of funny when that just dropped out of nowhere. And then also you had friendly local game stores being upset about it too, because they didn't know that they could even order it. So that product was on Target store shelves long before your friendly local game store had access to it, which was pretty upset.
That's hilarious considering nowadays you just see half a dozen Funko Pops advertising every single in and out of a script before anything ever hits the television.
Yeah, I don't think there was anything in there that like spoiled the movie, but it was more just like Disney didn't want non-employees being privy to it, I guess, is what it came down to.
Was there any major happenings in Destiny that you think Fantasy Flight needs to pay attention to when they're handling the development of Star Wars Unlimited in the long term?
The biggest problem with Destiny, like mechanic wise, was action economy. There were just sets and cards that were printed for this game that like action economy just became the most powerful thing. And I think they already learned that lesson, because I feel like the action economy, action boosting cards in Unlimited are few and far between, way less than what we ever saw with Destiny. And just the flow of the game is very different as well. So it doesn't lend itself to, I don't think a bunch of action cheating would be as powerful in Unlimited. It would be powerful, but I don't think it would be as absurd as it was in Destiny. But they've learned that lesson, and they learned that lesson with Destiny, because in later sets of Destiny they toned it down quite a bit. So I'd say that's about the only thing. We kind of talked about like how they handled like communications and stuff. They're doing much better on that front.
Yeah, I know one of the things that the Renewed Hope guys were talking about when it was the development of the first block, the first three sets. It was developed by a combo player, and then once you moved out of that block into the second block, the control shifted over to another guy who had a much more reserved development build style. Was there a type of block or type of development pattern that you preferred more? Did you prefer more of the combo stuff, or did you kind of really find your love for the game in the reserve
I
development?
definitely found my love for the game in more of the reserve style. I'm at heart, I've never been an aggro player. I'm more of a mid-range control mill type player. So I always appreciate when that's focused on a little bit more. And I'd say a majority of the design in Unlimited lends itself more to mid-range strategies, I think, with some elements of combo in there, because you have the stuff with like, the Han Solo deck with resource cheating and comboing off that way. But for the most part, I'd say a lot of the design space in Unlimited seems to be in like that mid-rangey kind of play. And I think that also comes from a place of they're designing this game in a way to where from the ground up, it's designed with other formats in mind, where Destiny was designed with one format in mind. You have Twin Suns and Draft, and now I guess like a wild format for Unlimited. I think that just designing cards that can be used in multiple formats always kind of lends themselves to be more mid-rangey than pure combo.
So as we close in on the end of this video, I just wanted to take a quick minute to talk about where both of us are with Star Wars Unlimited. Obviously, we've already had this conversation the first time when I fucked the audio setup, but where are you with Star Wars Unlimited, and how do you feel about the game as a sort of successor to the Destiny game?
So I think Unlimited is a worthy and much better successor to Destiny. Personally, though, I would trade Unlimited for a relaunch of Destiny with the same love, care, attention, and communication that we get from FFG now. to go back to Destiny. I just think dice are so much fun. That's probably the miniature game player in me that just wants to roll dice. But I think Unlimited is a far superior product when it comes to appealing to a mass market. And I think they've done an amazing job. I think the game's great. I love the game. There's nothing in it that makes me there's nothing about actually sitting down and playing the game that or when I'm playing the game rather. There's nothing about playing the game that makes me upset and wishing I was doing something else. So going into, you asked me where am I at personally with it, I have sold out of Unlimited, and it has nothing to do with the game itself or the communication from the company. It's purely just a time thing. I'm at a point in my life where I'm trying to move forward in other spaces, and just I don't have the time. I want to play it in a hyper competitive mindset, and I just don't have the time at the moment to play it in that hyper competitive realm. So I sold out. I have too many hobbies, so I decided to keep one. I'm in the process of selling off a bunch of other miniature games and stuff too. I decided to keep one miniature game, and that'll be my hobby. Now, is there a time where maybe I have way more free time and I can come back to Unlimited and play it the way I want to? Absolutely. And I'm really hoping that comes sooner rather than later, because I'd love to get back to this game.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think Star Wars Unlimited was fantastic, and it was really great to take a hiatus from Yu-Gi-Oh! During what was probably one of the worst years of competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! That's ever been documented historically. And yeah, I've sold out all of my stuff at this point. I think I have maybe $100 worth of cards that I still have on hand that I just haven't been able to sell out. But if anything, I think the only play I would come back to would be something along the lines of Twin Suns or just playing Draft, and kind of keeping this game at arm's reach in a very similar way to how I keep Magic the Gathering at arm's reach, just playing Commander and occasionally drafting with friends if they're ever looking to have me come by and play games with them. So I do think they did a really great job so far, and I definitely think that the jump to light speed previews that we've been seeing are really exciting. I don't know. Do you have any opinions on the new pilot mechanic?
Oh, I think piloting is sick.
Yeah,
I like the idea of,
I
and then
completely agree.
I think piloting is really cool. Especially when it comes to the leader cards, it's not the route that I thought they were going to go when it came to space leaders. But I really like this design space that they've opened up with piloting. I thought we were just going to see leaders that when they deploy into space, just as like their own card, not an attachment. But I think this design space is really good. I think they're pushing the limits of what it means for a card to be an upgrade with these piloting cards.
Especially with how poor a lot of the upgrades kind of felt early on. Upgrades really just didn't feel like they were all the way there. So these space leaders or these upgrade leaders just feel like they're definitely bringing something new to the table.
Yeah. Really fun, really interesting design space. I'm also a huge fan of like all these value cards where they can go from being a pilot to being a ground unit or vice versa. I think that's really, I'm always about a value card. And like, space vehicles fighters is like probably my favorite part of Star Wars too.
Yeah. Oh, I'm a huge space player. I love the Django space deck where you're just doing triple dark raid was my absolute favorite shit. I love
but
that
even
deck
from
so much.
a fluff perspective, it's just like
just the ships in general.
The design of the ships in Star Wars has always been like one of my favorite things, where it's like this interesting blend of a sci-fi and actual like naval concepts. Has always been really fun. So I'm upset that I'm getting out at this time. Those have you seen those sideways cards?
Have the Devastator one. They are beautiful.
They're gorgeous. Like those are really fun. And I think we can talk about this really quickly. I think I was a little bit scared of what these carbonite or whatever they're called collector's boosters were going to look like. I think they hit a pretty good middle ground on having some really fun, interesting designs, having something out there for the collector, but at the same time, it's not necessary for just someone who wants to play the game. We'll see where like the secondary market ends up on them. Yeah, I want to see where the market sits, but as of right now, I'm kind of happy with the way that product is looking.
Yeah, I think my one hope for Fantasy Flight in the long term with Star Wars Unlimited is that I hope that they start feeling more comfortable with the competitive nature of the game that they're developing. Not necessarily with just banning cards, but possibly even like adjusting cards down to like different numbers. Like if you could only run one copy of something like Super Laser Blast, But I definitely think they're onto something really great going forward. I just think they need to embrace the competitiveness of this game because it really does feel like something that they are very new to, or this level of success and competition that people are really bringing to the table when it comes to Star Wars Unlimited.
Yeah, like they've had other games where there's high level competitive play, but they've never really embraced it. They've always just kind of been like, this is our game and people play it very competitively, but we're not going to make a huge deal about it. I think they have a chance to really make a big deal about this game. Then on the other side of that, I think Twin Suns has a lot of potential to be an extremely popular format. I'm looking forward to, now that Twin Suns is like complete in a sense, because it goes up to 80 cards with the release of this next set. I'm looking forward to that's probably how I'm going to hang out and interact with my community, is sitting down and ordering 80 cards on TCG Player and just having like a fun deck with an interesting theme to go hang out and play Twin Suns, once or twice a month
I think that's probably
group,
one of my hopes too with the Carbonite set, where you're saying, okay, you're going to bring in all of these higher rarity cards. Maybe that drives down the secondary market for the base level cards, and yeah, maybe it does maybe I do end up just going onto TCG Player, throwing 80 cards into a cart, buying it, heading up to my LGS, and then playing some games.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that because I've in the probably, I don't know, maybe dozen Twin Suns games that I've played. It is a very fun format. It scratches the Commander itch, but it doesn't leave me bored the same way Commander could, where I'm like sitting there waiting for the blue player to finish his combo. But it scratches that same itch of like this multiplayer game that's really fun.
All right, so before I make any more enemies by talking about Magic the Gathering, do you want to just give any shout outs as I close the video out?
Yeah, so shout outs to Dragon's Lair Houston. That's kind of like the biggest place to play Destiny, I'd say, not Destiny, play Unlimited. It was also our biggest place to play Destiny back in the day, though. So shout outs to Dragon's Lair Houston. Also shout outs to Kingwood Hobby, local guy that runs a store that sells singles, and it is kind of the market on Destiny cards. So if you're looking for Destiny cards, he has, I don't want to say he has everything available, but he has Destiny still available and also sells Unlimited. So check him out. And then I just want to shout out the hobby that I decided to stay into is a smaller niche miniatures game. So I want to shout out Conquest: The Last Argument of Kings by Parabellum Games. Check it out.
You showed me those
fantasy
miniatures.
Yeah, it's a high fan, or no, it's more of a dark fantasy rank and flank miniature game. It's just my favorite thing at the moment, and I've played a lot of miniature games. It does a lot for me, and it's a smaller niche thing. So if you're interested in miniature games, just give the model range a look. I think it's interesting. It's different than a lot of other stuff on the market today.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Matt. Really appreciate it. Thanks for recording this a second time. Hopefully this time no I have the audio tracks. Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah, okay. We can have another post video chat. Yeah, the new showcases are phenomenal. Jesus, I mean, really, Unlimited has been stepping it up with the art.
The Boba one is so good.
Yeah, it's genuinely
the only one
incredible.
That's a stinker is Akbar. I don't like how dark it is.
Yeah,
that's the only stinker. But holy shit, yeah, their art is.
I mean, even when you were talking to me, and this was like in the same bit of video that we talked about last time. After we stopped recording, you went, yeah, those promos that they had for Destiny, the things like the Cad Bane promo, all the Spot Gloss promos, those are some of just incredible arts that they put together for these cards. The Darth Maul promo, it's genuinely impressive how nice some of the cards that they just kind of put out actually look. It's unfortunate, that I couldn't really pull anything too crazy in this box. I mean, I think the best thing I pulled here was like Chewbacca and then Slave One or something like that.
Right, pulling Slave One is peak.
Yeah, but the spot glosses that they put together back then, just great. And then obviously, like you said, the Annihilator, the Executor, the sideways cards.
Those are gorgeous,
beautiful. I cannot wait to see what they do with the design space art wise for this game. I mean, even the collector's set that they put out, where they had those original ones, the Kylo, Asajj,
Oh
Dooku.
yeah,
The where
the
was
like
that?
villain pack, the
Yeah,
one that was available at
that
cons.
yeah, the cons set that got sold out instantly, immediately.
Yeah.
Even those were just absolutely gorgeous. So I can't wait to see how they kind of advance the art, because I think
Yeah.
one of the things you really bragged on a lot with Destiny was everything was original art, and again, we're just seeing like here's a bunch of
Oh
original
no,
art. We're
no,
not
no.
just is
Destiny
that
was
wrong?
not original art.
Oh, okay.
This Unlimited is all
Unlimited
original
is all
artwork.
original. Okay. That's the
Yes.
one, yeah. You were explaining how you really
Destiny.
liked how that art was original. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Destiny. They were reusing stuff that they had from years from the LCG and from their pen and paper RPG books. I wish I would have said something about that when we were talking about the collector's boosters, because I really, really like the thing that they put out about every time for every set for the collector's boosters, there's a theme for the cards that get the special treatment. So the theme for this set is ships, and so the next set
Oh,
is
that's
called
why it's
like
all ships. Okay.
yes. So the collector's boosters will always have that theme. So the next set is called like Force Unlimited or something like that. So we're gonna get a bunch of like really nice uh, special artworks for like all the Jedi, which will be sick, dude. I'm excited. Yeah, that's why they're all the ships, and they're all in this like similar style where
Okay. Okay.
they're gorgeous.
Yeah. No, I genuinely can't wait to see what they end up putting forward when it comes to the new art. I mean, just the new art that they're putting out. It's going to be great. I'm excited for it.
Yeah. Did you see that these two uh, are panoramic? Hold on, I'm about to send it to you.
Yes, I did. I know exactly which ones you're talking about already. Yes, I did see that those are panoramic. The red leader and
Red
the
5 and Victor
uh,
Leader. Yeah.
yeah, and the Victor leader. Oh God. Yeah, they're doing it again, man. They're bringing the
Yeah,
panoramics. I
that's
love panoramic cards. I think I
yeah,
showed you
that's
one of my favorite panoramics is currently in Digimon. Actually, the Omnimon
yeah.
one with the
Yeah, you showed me
uh,
that. It's like 6
God
pieces
bless,
or
man.
something, right?
It's a full page. It's a full 9 card panoramic.
Yeah.
Um, Designs like that are what get me excited for card games, and seeing that Red
Yeah.
5 Victor Leader. The second I saw that, I just went, God damn it! They're doing it again, baby. They're bringing it
Yeah.
back.
Love to have some of these. I don't care about the serialized ones. But I would love to have some of the base copies of these. They're very pretty. I'm interested to see where the market lands on those. But all right, dude, I gotta take off.
Yep, you're good, man. Peace.
Yeah, take it easy.